Crop Talk on Market Journal is supported by Nebraska's soybean farmers and their checkoff. Nebraska's USDA Farm Service Agency is reminding ag producers that now is the time to make election or enroll in the agriculture risk coverage and price loss coverage programs for the 2024 crop year. Those programs, also known as ARC and PLC, and producers have until March 15th to make their selection. Joining the show this week to discuss those programs was Extension Educator Brad Lubben. And Brad, really what we're talking about is the economics have changed here in 2024 when it comes to having to make decisions for crop insurance. Kind of set up the situation as you see it.
Well, that's right. You know, it's the same decision producers have had for the last several years with a simple extension of the 18 Farm Bill again for another year. It's the same program, ARC and PLC. But it is different economic conditions with prices that have moved higher over the last several years and now maybe coming off of those highs. We have a moving average that's gone higher, which means that the ARC guarantee adjusts accordingly, but in fact so does the PLC guarantee. PLC is a reference price, but there's an effective reference price formula. And in 2024, perhaps for the first time, for at least for the major crops, that moving average has moved high enough that the calculation of an effective reference price actually goes up. Take corn, for example. The effective reference price for corn for 2024 is 401 instead of the legislated reference price of 370. So a substantial move up. ARC, what I consider to be the effective price protection in ARC, remember there's a benchmark yield, and the benchmark price times 86% gives you this guarantee. If you assume that's out of the price, so you're assuming benchmark yields, then the effective protection price for ARC is about 417. Well, 401 versus 417 is a lot closer than we've been between PLC and ARC versus where we've been the last several years either way.
With our time together today, I want to try to break down the two main programs we talk about, agriculture risk coverage and price loss coverage. We'll start on ARC.
Yeah.
What does that cover exactly?
So ARC, as it was originally created in 2014 and as it continues to date, it really is a fundamental revenue-based safety net. But it's tied to a moving average revenue. I mentioned a benchmark yield times a benchmark price. This happens at the county level, or for those individuals that really want a farm level protection policy, ARC for the farm or ARC individual coverage ties all crops on the farm together. But most are thinking about ARC at the county level, crop by crop. You have a county level yield, Olympic average of a trend adjusted county yield. You have a national marketing year price, and you take an Olympic average of that. That produces a benchmark revenue. That's effectively, what's the revenue you would expect to receive, assuming everything's sort of an average result. Multiply that by 86%, that's the guarantee. ARC pays when the local county result falls below that guarantee. Now, ARC is not a full sort of deep loss protection safety net. It only pays the first 10% of losses, from that 86% guarantee down to 76% of the guarantee of the benchmark. That helps producers on the more frequent sort of shallow losses in revenue. It doesn't help on the deepest losses, or at least it stops early on the deepest losses. And it's really up to a producer to remember the rest of their safety net, whether that's crop insurance or marketing or other risk management decisions. But ARC helps protect the shallow losses that we often sort of argue happen too frequently.
Okay, so that's ARC. How does it differ from PLC, price loss coverage?
Price loss coverage really mimics the same price safety net that we've had for decades. And as it was designed and then modified in the 2018 Farm Bill, it protects producers when the national marketing year average price falls below the reference rate. Well, there's a legislated reference rate, which is effectively a minimum. But then there is a formula to move that reference rate higher if prices are higher. So you, again, look at marketing year average prices over a recent 5-year period. You take an Olympic average. If 85% of that Olympic average is higher than the legislated rate, you move the reference rate higher. So we have an effective reference rate that's higher than what was originally legislated. There is a cap on that, always something to add complexity, 115% of the legislated reference rate. So corn is an example. The legislative reference rate in the 18 Farm Bill, the 14 bill before it, was $3.70 a bushel. 115% of that, I believe, gets to $4.26. In between $3.70 and $4.26, if the effective reference price is in there, that's where we're at. And for 2024, that's $4.01. So that's an example.
So we have an upcoming deadline. FSA has a March 15th deadline for sign up for this year. Talk about what that looks like. A producer heads into their county office. Well,
it's the same decision that producers have had for several years. If you want to change your current enrollment, you need to make an election at the FSA office, in addition to visiting the FSA office to make the annual participation decision. Given the complexity this year with prices moving, which means the guarantees are moving, which means the relative benefits of ARC versus PLC may shift a bit for producers, it's worth analyzing and then going and making a thoughtful decision at FSA. It's not as simple as just keep me in what I was in. It's worth the time to make a decision. It's worth some education and some analysis to make a good decision.
To that education point, you've got a webinar. We'll post a link to that. You posted this past Thursday, but in February, in-person sessions as well. Talk about those.
Right. Well, we're collaborating, as we have done annually, we're collaborating. Nebraska Extension and USDA Farm Service Agency here in Nebraska are collaborating on education for producers. That started with a webinar here in January to present a broad overview of program and enrollment details along with economic analysis of that decision. We'll carry that same message out to 20 meetings across the state in February. Again, a Nebraska Extension, Nebraska FSA collaboration. So on our CAP website, our Center for Ag Profitability website, cap.unl.edu, you'll find all this information. But certainly there's an opportunity to do some education for yourself, whether it's to watch a recording of the webinar that we've completed or whether it's to find a meeting and come attend in person and listen to the discussion. You can certainly learn a little bit before you go into the FSA office.